Performing Chindo for Shakyamuni Buddha. Today, I held Shakyamuni Buddha's Chindo ceremony. But when Shakyamuni Buddha was leaving at the end, he said something to me. He said that during all this time, in order to enlighten and save many living beings, he came to the Sabha world, did many good things, spread Buddhism widely, and also performed ascetic practices. But he could not accomplish it. He said that although he could not accomplish it, now that Maitreya Buddha has come to the Sabha world, his mission has completely ended, so now he must rest. That is what he said. Then tears suddenly came to me. It was not that I shed tears, but that Shakyamuni Buddha shed tears. Shakyamuni is a great person, because he is someone who spent his whole life performing ascetic practices for living beings and then departed. He is a great person. But because he remained for a long time trying to enlighten and save living beings, he has not attained Buddhahood. Originally, in Buddhism, they say that if one does good deeds, one attains Buddhahood after death, right? But attaining Buddhahood means becoming Buddha after death. If one becomes Buddha after death, doesn't that mean going to the land of perfect bliss? But originally, the land of perfect bliss does not exist. Because it does not exist, Shakyamuni comes to Yonghwa every Sunday. The reason he comes is because his mission has now ended. Since Maitreya Buddha has come to the Sabha world, he has nothing to do, and even if he does work, he cannot accomplish it. Because he cannot accomplish it, it means he must now leave. So every Sunday, he came like this each week to listen to the sermon. But now he has gone peacefully to the Yonghwa world. The Yonghwa world is something I created. So it has been a long time since I created the Yonghwa world. But in order to enlighten and save living beings, one must come to the Sabha world with a body. One cannot enlighten and save living beings while sitting in the Yonghwa world. That is why the person who came to the Sabha world with flesh and bones is Maitreya Buddha. So in order for Maitreya Buddha to enlighten and save living beings in the Sabha world, he must bring something that can enlighten and save them. So what did he bring? That is precisely Buddha's enlightened light. That is what I mean. In enlightening and saving living beings, without Buddha's enlightened light, enlightening and saving living beings cannot be done. So what does it mean to say that one attains Buddhahood after death? Everyone, you do not really know about attaining Buddhahood, right? To explain attaining Buddhahood simply through an analogy, when a cherry tree blossoms, the cherry tree is attaining Buddhahood. So if the cherry tree dies, flowers do not bloom. They will never bloom. Only when the tree is alive and interdependently arises do flowers bloom. People are the same. For a person to attain Buddhahood, one must receive Buddha's enlightened light in order to attain Buddhahood. What that means is this: all human flesh and bones are the same. Because they are the same, they live the same way and then die. But a person without Buddha's enlightened light is the same as a cherry tree whose flowers do not bloom. So Buddha's enlightened light must be inside a person's body for flowers to be blooming in that body. That is what I mean. Everyone, think about it logically. My words are right, aren't they? Without cherry blossoms, a cherry tree cannot pass itself off as a cherry tree. It is just black tree branches. Who would call that a cherry tree? When flowers bloom, beautiful flowers bloom. So when you go there, it is extraordinary. It would be nice if they were always blooming, right? But that is not the case. When the time comes, cherry blossoms are destined to fall too. When they fall, they must begin anew again. So flowers bloom only when the tree is alive. If the tree dies, it ends there. People are the same. They pass themselves off as something while alive. But once they die, it ends. Shakyamuni is the same. Because he died, it ended. He had been wandering around the world until now as a spirit. So now, I sent him on the path he wanted to go, as the highest grade in the Yonghwa world. That is what I mean. So when one remains as a spirit, one is nothing but a living being. When one goes as the highest grade in the Yonghwa world, what does one become? Like a cherry tree blooming, one becomes Gong Thought. So when one is alive, moving, and able to pass oneself off as something, one becomes Gong Thought. but remaining as a spirit like that does not become Gong Thought. Do you know how precious Maitreya Buddha is? Who on earth is Buddha's enlightened light coming out from the human body? There is not a single person. Even Shakyamuni did not emit light, so he remained as a living being, then received Chando from Maitreya Buddha, and departed on his original path, as Gong Thought. That is what I mean. Therefore, monks and Buddhists who believe in Buddhism must always have respect toward Maitreya Buddha and say, thank you every day from now on. Shakyamuni Buddha came to the Sabha world and spread Buddhism for 2,500 to 2,600 years, right? As of today, that now comes to an end. It comes to an end, and from now on, everyone must accept and learn the new Maitreya Buddhism that has come to the Sabha world, and all people must become living Buddhahood. How to become living Buddhahood? Do you know why it is living Buddhahood? I told you earlier. A dead persimmon tree does not bloom and does not bear fruit, right? Living Buddhahood refers to the state of being alive and not dead. Only when one becomes living Buddhahood can one do anything. What can something dead do? Then if you are sick, why go to the hospital instead of just dying? You struggle desperately to live, right? Why do you struggle desperately? You struggle desperately not to die, in order to become living Buddhahood. Living Buddhahood means being alive. Only when you are alive can you learn Buddhism and receive Buddha's enlightened light. What can a dead person receive? Isn't that so? That is why I said the time when you are alive is precious. You must become living Buddhahood while you are alive. Only then can you come again after death. That is what I mean. What must happen in order to become living Buddhahood? I am telling you, you must receive Buddha's enlightened light. If you do not receive it, you cannot become living Buddhahood. It is not only people, all things are like that. Everyone, look, when the weather is hot in summer, farming goes well, right? If the light of the sun disappears, all crops end there. They all disappear. The light of the sun and the Buddha's enlightened light possessed by Maitreya Buddha are the same. It is the character for light, Buddha's enlightened light. Then Maitreya Buddha places the Buddha's enlightened light he possesses into people. The light of the sun is the same. The light of the sun also places Buddha's enlightened light into grain and all things. Because it places that light into them, the grain ripens, and after it is harvested in autumn. If it is planted again, it sprouts again. If it does not receive light, it ends there. If you plant it, it will not sprout. Everyone, try planting grain in the shade. See whether the grain ripens. It only has a form, the grain does not ripen. I am telling you, it is the same. Therefore, all people must receive Buddha's enlightened light. In human beings, the astral body they possess is inside the eyes. That astral body is used only while one is alive. After death, it cannot be used. But it does not die. Even though it does not die, it becomes unusable. That is what I mean. If that astral body is confined in the eyes through Buddha's enlightened light of Buddha, that astral body opens its eyes. From then on, it begins to act as something alive. That is why I told you to receive commandments of Buddhism. Even if you sit here and receive light without receiving commandments of Buddhism, the astral body is not alive. For a person to place light into a human body is something that does not exist anywhere on earth. So what is the use of going to the Yonghwa world after death? You cannot even go to the Yonghwa world. When you die, you simply disappear as spirits. Dipankara is Maitreya Buddha. Today, Shakyamuni went to the Yonghwa world. When I looked from my room earlier, there was a great commotion in the Yonghwa world to receive Shakyamuni. Because a precious person was coming, they were preparing tremendously to receive him well, and it was magnificent. Earlier, during the Buddhist service, I quietly looked from my room, and because they were preparing to welcome a precious guest, it was magnificent. I am telling you, I sent him as the highest grade in the Yonghwa world. But listen carefully. Shakyamuni becoming Buddha does not happen because he learned the enlightenment by himself. To become Buddha, one must receive commandments of Buddhism. So from whom does one receive commandments of Buddhism? Only when one receives commandments of Buddhism from Dipankara, who is higher than Buddha, can one pass oneself off as Buddha. Who is that? That is precisely Maitreya Buddha. That is what I mean. Therefore, Maitreya Buddha existed from the beginning. The beginning. He did not appear halfway through after humans had been living. I am telling you, he existed from the beginning. From the time humans first appeared on this earth, Maitreya Buddha had come into the world. That is what I mean. From then on, Maitreya Buddha had continued to be present in the world. Then, when he manifested in the Sabha world with a body, that is called Maitreya Buddha. So who is Dipankara? Shakyamuni became Buddha by receiving commandments of Buddhism from Maitreya Buddha. But the title Buddha is originally something only that person can use. Sakya, the Sakya clan. So Sakya is a proper noun that only that person can come to the world and use. Only that person can use it. Then Maitreya Buddha has a different name, right? So originally, he is Dipankara. But he came in the future to enlighten and save living beings, and because Shakyamuni had worked hard all this time, he came with a body in order to send Shakyamuni back to the Yonghwa world. The Maitreya Buddha who came is not Sakya. He is Maitreya Buddha. He is Maitreya Buddha. But why does he become Yonghwa? The Yonghwa world is the place where human beings possess Buddha's enlightened light like the light of the sun. Therefore, the Yonghwa world has existed separately since long ago. So how did Shakyamuni go today? He departed to the Yonghwa world riding a dragon. That is what I mean. Look, now it is clean, right? It is clean. Why? Because Chindo is done through Buddha's enlightened light. It does not even take 5 minutes. So how wonderful is that? It is extraordinary. Even now, there are many people sitting in temples calling upon Shakyamuni. But it is completely useless to call him. What is the use of calling someone who is not even there? So last time, I also performed a Chindo ceremony for Avalokitesvara Bodhisattva. And Avalokitesvara Bodhisattva is now in the highest grade of the Yonghwa world. After meeting Maitreya Buddha, he went to a good place. I did a good deed for him. Therefore, because Shakyamuni spread Buddhism all this time, he is a precious person, right? Now he is living comfortably in the Yonghwa world until the end of the earth. Then the era of Shakyamuni is now coming to an end. It is ending, and from now on, people must accept and learn the Maitreya Buddhism of Yonghwa Maitreya Buddha. Only then can human beings reincarnate again after living and dying in this world. One must receive Buddha's enlightened light in order to reincarnate. I told you about reincarnation last time, right? Reincarnation is different from samsara. Samsara means reusing what already existed, while reincarnation means discarding what existed and returning anew again. Therefore, samsara does not exist. That is why reincarnation is spoken of. So you must come to Maitreya Buddha and receive Buddha's enlightened light in order to reincarnate. Then you can go to the Yonghwa world and also receive another body and return as a living being. Because Buddha's enlightened light is inside the body, one can receive another body and return. And even after living and dying with that body, one does not disappear. Once you receive Buddha's enlightened light even once, you do not perish, unless you greatly insult Maitreya Buddha or commit evil acts. That Buddha's enlightened light does not disappear. So after reincarnating and living and dying again, one can return once more. Do you think I will live for hundreds of years and perform Chindo every single day? If Chindo must be done every time someone comes, what would that be called? Then that living being becomes a single life existence. Why is it a single life existence? Listen carefully. Because they must receive it anew every single time they come. Then it does not become Gong Thought. That is what I mean. What did I say Gong Thought was? I said it must always exist, right? Something that disappears, changes, and vanishes is not Gong Thought. That is false. So what did I say? I said true emptiness. Wonderful existence is false. That is why people keep holding Chindo ceremonies every day and doing such useless things. So what did I call a body that has received Buddha's enlightened light from Buddha? I called it living Buddhahood. Living Buddhahood means making someone into a living Buddha. Then after living and dying, one does not disappear. Whether one lives in the Yonghwa world or receives a body and comes to the Sabha world, it is the same. But if one simply dies, one disappears as a spirit. Buddha's enlightened light is the support of all things. Everyone, look at a chestnut burr from a chestnut tree. If the chestnut is still inside the burr, would you eat it? It is covered in thorns so that no one can touch it. Can you touch it? You cannot touch it. The precious chestnut is completely surrounded by thorns so that no one can touch it. Then when it receives the sun's Buddha's enlightened light, the thorns open up like this, right? At that moment, it is as though they are saying, now you can survive even if you go out into the world, and the thorns open. Then the chestnut falls out. That is what people call a chestnut. A chestnut still inside the burr is not truly a chestnut. Take that one and plant it. Even if you plant that chestnut for thousands upon thousands of years, it will not sprout. It must receive the light of the sun. Only then, when the chestnut ripens and comes out into the world, can it sprout when planted again, and return again. That is why the sermon I teach about Gong Thought is extraordinary. Gong Thought means something that never disappears, something that must be alive. The dead cannot qualify, because the dead are impermanent. The dead cannot become Gong Thought. Then can you create seawater? Is seawater dead? Or alive? It is alive, right? How is it alive? There is so much seawater, and the seas across the whole earth are vast, right? But even with a great ocean, if there is no sunlight, the sea quickly rots. If it rots, the fish and seaweed inside the ocean all disappear overnight. That is why I said Buddha's enlightened light is precious, right? What is the use of the sun rising if there is no light? Without light, even the sun is useless. Because there is light, seawater remains alive. Go to the mountains. When you go to the mountains, what are mountains made of? They are made of soil. Then trees live because there is soil, right? But even that soil rots completely if there is no Buddha's enlightened light from the sun. It rots, and then the trees cannot live. Gong Thought cannot apply to the dead. That is what I mean. It must be alive. Therefore, only with the sun's Buddha's enlightened light can the sea live, the mountains live, and the earth live. Human life also does not simply exist on its own. People live depending on the light of the sun, and when their lifespan ends, their bodies simply disappear. People also live while relying on the sun's light, but once they die, that is the end. Because it ends, I say that only humans possess souls in this world. The soul does not disappear after death. Why does it not disappear? Because Gong Thought exists inside the human body. That is what I mean. That Gong Thought is not the physical body but the soul. If that soul receives commandments of Buddhism through Buddha's enlightened light of Buddha, it can live forever. That is what is called receiving commandments of Buddhism. Therefore, you must receive that Buddha's enlightened light in order to live through lifetime after lifetime without dying. That is what I mean. The law of all things in the universe, the Gong Thought. The teachings of Yonghwa Maitreya Buddha, the founder of the Gong Thought. An enlightened Buddha emits light from his body and saves living beings with Buddha's enlightened light. The light of the sun that creates all things is Buddha's enlightened light. And only the Buddha's enlightened light of an enlightened Buddha can make humans reincarnate. The Buddha's enlightened light of the living Buddha. That is precisely the Gong Thought. Receiving Shugi means embracing Buddha's enlightened light, that is, the Gong Thought, within my body. After death, there is no samsara, only everything becomes extinct. If you receive Shugi with the Buddha's enlightened light of an enlightened Buddha, you will have eyes that can see the Yonghwa world even after death. Chindo and Shugi are only possible through the Buddha's enlightened light of an enlightened Buddha. Don't receive Chindo after death, receive Shugi while you are alive. Believe and follow only what you can see, hear, and confirm. The dead cannot arise interdependently, only the living can arise interdependently. Just as gold cannot be made artificially, a Buddha comes as a Buddha from the beginning, and a living being cannot become a Buddha through prayer or Zen meditation. However, those who have received Shugi can receive Buddha's enlightened light and become living Buddhas. All these Gong Thought were created by Yonghwa Maitreya Buddha. Like the sky and the earth, the sea and the mountains, the source of life and creation, the limitless and eternal truth, the Gong Thought. See, hear, and meet Yonghwa Maitreya Buddha's Gong Thought directly every Sunday at Yonghwa Temple in Surazan Mountain, Anyang.